So anyway, like, so like obviously, we can talk about the great thing. We're kind of starting to look at some of the cons of group content. I think one of the big problems you will look into is it's really hard for people with limited time to participate in group content because you essentially have kind of this social overhead of like dealing and organizing people. And like this was like especially poignant in EverQuest where people would take a long time to find a group, but then when they found a group and if everything was working great, like they would just kind of like sit there for as long as possible because this is the most efficient thing they could do. If they left and tried to come back like the next day or whatnot, they would have to spend that time again to find that group and whatnot. So if you have like a limited time, having to do group content can be a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, and 11 in 11, like if you had to wait an hour to get a group, you wanted to be in that group for at least 3 hours.
Right. Like and then like like 4-hour commitment to something is great when you're like a student or maybe single with with no significant other and definitely no family. But once you start dating or getting married or having kids or having to go to work to pay the mortgage, like 4 hours of time, uninterrupted time, what the fuck is that? Like
Right.
and so like you're really kind of limiting your who can basically participate in it if you're defining it that way. I think from the developer point of view you have to manage the community better,
Mm-hmm.
because you start like again you start getting kind of toxic people. They can basically kind of ruin the experience for people. Look at League of Legends kind of being the canonical example here where you have to kind of play with other people and other people are kind of shitty.
Actually, on as a small tangent, I just saw an article that Riot Games is under investigation for
Oh, yeah.
I forget by what department, but basically for toxic work environment and
Oh yeah.
sexist business practices and
No, that's been in the news for a while. Kind of like mirroring. The irony here, of course, is like like the in-game toxicity has been gotten gotten a lot of attention. Not necessarily because they don't like toxic people, but because it's forcing away people that were would otherwise spend money. And so and so and then you kind of have the dark side of what we talked about before, where the community can police itself and kind of force assholes out of the way. The problem is though, is that when you get enough asshole people, it can basically ostracize people that they simply don't like.
that's kind of like the whole killers.
Right. A classic example of this was you could basically like or you could basically give thumbs up or thumbs down to someone in someone's place in The Sims Online.
Mm.
And so the idea of course was like if the person was cool and they did good things and you give them a thumbs up. If they were kind of assholes and abusive and whatnot, you give a thumbs down. Well, a bunch of people got together and they called themselves the Sims Mafia, and they go to people and say, you're going to pay us money or we're all going to mark your spot down and it's going to lose popularity and no one will come here.
Oh my god.
Right. And so well then.
Oh my god, that's awful.
Right.
I love it though.
I mean, you have to admire the audacity on some level, but on the flip side is like that's not the type of people you want playing your game.
Right. Oh my
but
god.
But because like a lot of the stuff in The Sims Online was very much based on group, like if people were coming to your place and admiring your stuff, like that was a real threat. And so like
play Eve.
I mean,
they probably do.
They probably do. Like that asshole PvPer probably plays Eve now. And so another downside of group content from a developer point of view, kind of like what we talked about before, it's hard to do stories via cutscenes.
Right.
I think a perfect example of this is like the main scenario quest roulette in Final Fantasy. So there was these 2 dungeons at the end of the Final Fantasy Realm Reborn, what players will call 2.0, the kind of the relaunch of the bad 1.0 launch. And there's kind of these 2 dungeons. They're kind of the capstone of the whole thing. They were larger group dungeons than like the normal 4 people dungeons. Um, but they had a lot of cutscenes in them, and so basically what would happen originally was like there's one or two things you had to do. Either you watch the cutscenes while everybody else who already saw the cutscenes and didn't care rushed forward, and basically went cutscene, get jumped up forward to a boss fight, cutscene, get jumped up forward to cutscene. Like you didn't actually get to play the dungeon.
And there are long cutscenes in this.
And they were long. Like, yeah, like you said, like like people would go from boss fight to boss fight in the time it took you to get the cutscenes.
If that, like sometimes,
right,
you could be 2 bosses behind and still be on the same cutscene.
right. And so, the other option, of course, was to basically skip the cutscenes. Keep up with people. Actually enjoy the dungeon content, and then you basically go and watch the cutscenes later. So there's the Final Fantasy XIV solution to this was what was called MSQ Roulette, which basically means you're committed to run these dungeons, and the cutscenes are unskippable. But they give you a lot of experience points for this as compensation.
And
Okay.
an example of like how bad it is that when they first introduced the roulette, it gave one set of rewards, and people complained that it wasn't worth it. It wasn't enough, and they actually upped the rewards on top of it.
Right. Again, because of the achiever focus and efficiency, people were like, if I'm going to, because like, how long? It takes like 2 hours to get through the dungeon, watching the cutscenes and whatnot, right?
No, it's not. It's not 2 hours. It's like 40 minutes.
Is it 40 minutes?
Yeah, because I do MSQ roulette.
Okay. It feels like 40 hours, but it feels like a full-time job going through this thing. But
I just watch Flat Earth debates while I do it.
That explains so much about you. But anyway, but yeah, because it's efficiency, you need to basically reward somebody for investing 40 minutes into this thing, whereas they could basically get through another dungeon in 25 minutes or whatnot. So
like expert roulette dungeons take like exactly 15 minutes.
Right. And that's kind of like the high-end content you're doing with your your level 70 character to gear them up. Yeah. The kind of one of the last kind of downside of group content is kind of dealing with the bads in content can just be frustrating when you kind of have some. You said it anyway. But just it can be just like super frustrating to kind of have this person who's not paying attention, who's not doing the thing, that's not listening. Like this is not the ideal situation that you want to expose players to, and the players don't want to be part of that. So it can be just really frustrating to kind of like have to deal with that.
My favorite line is tank stands, please.
Yes.
What's that?
I mean, right, yeah, and yeah, and the other interesting thing is like people kind of like doing that, like not even using people's character names, just like tank, do this.
Oh yeah.
Kind of this kind of removal of the personalization. But yeah, and so